It's busted.
Yeah, Brett. Well, and already people are talking about what they saw last night. You better have your brackets filled out. I think you better have them out in the next hour. We'll help you as best we can. We got a great show in store. Brendan Martin, our executive producer at Mission Control. You know what we ought to start doing like they did with NASA? Start wearing white short sleeve rayon shirts with pocket protectors and ties and birth control glasses, like Mission Control at the Johnson Space Center. No, maybe not. But
I'm not wearing that.
Okay. But we got John Hartwell, AD at ULM, basketball savant, on his ninth day now, recovering from knee replacement surgery. Coach Matt Dean over in Memphis, and Bo Carter, one of the wise sages, been around a long time, former SID at Mississippi State, longtime media relations director in the Southwest Conference, the Big 12, now the National Football Foundation, and Baseball Writers of America. Smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner.
Get your brackets. Pen and paper.
Yeah, pen and paper handy, and hit allow notifications on your Android or iPhone. Look, I had someone tell me yesterday, Wesley, a viewer down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that would be Broward County, and he said, I can't ever get the show till about 8 or 9 minutes after. He said, it used to be, I just clicked it. Tell me, for anyone who's having trouble, maybe today they're watching, obviously, but what might be causing that? Let's help them out. But tell your friends, your family, your neighbors, share us, like us, and smash that subscribe button. We'll be right back. Here we go. It is.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, I see Bo Carter down there. I thought he was wearing something green from St. Patrick's Day. I see John Hartwell rehabbing, working his way back. I'll be working my way back to you. John, Old Man Brown is watching right now. You know what? I have to send him a special link because Old Man Brown says, boy, he goes, he'll send, you ought to see the stuff. Grandbob is watching right now, but Dad had both knees replaced 4 months apart. Mm-hmm. And that was when he was 85. He's 95 now. And I said, what is that? Just, football injuries and stuff? He said, no. He said, it's from doing full squats. Instead of, you stop halfway down, you go all the way down. Old school. He was middleweight powerlifting champion. He could bench 340 with no steroids, clean and jerk over 300. And I used to warm up with, I don't know. But when you get your knees replaced, it said, he goes, I felt like a 35-year-old. It makes a big difference. And stay active. So I am really following your progress. Hope you're doing well. Bo Carter, John Hartwell and Matt Dean. Brendan Martin, our executive producer, he drives the ship. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm so fired up today. I've got where'd my brackets go, Mildred? Oh, I'm picking Alabama. But get your brackets filled out.
Let's go Buffs.
Yeah, let's go Buffs. The interest in Colorado basketball is, I don't know, they're suddenly, look, people are excited. I just want somebody to tell me on these brackets why so many people don't do their homework. You got to look at the schools where they've played together for 3 or 4 years, whether it's an actual team versus a bunch of guys that have been together for 6 months and still don't know how to spell each other's last name. The best thing we ever had to do in college was learn the name, the major, the hometown, and whatever they wanted us to about everybody in the fraternity. I can still tell you where Ellis Stitch is from, New Orleans, Louisiana, Diggy Retief, South Africa, from Birmingham. I can tell you where Lane Duggar was from, Auburn, Alabama. You should know that. Matt Dean, get us started, man, right now. How fired up are you? You can't even – did you sleep last night? I didn't.
Fortunately, Rob, my CPAP worked really well last night.
Yeah, I slept great.
I got 6 solid. And,
All right.
Just so we know the format, I'm Matt Dean from Davenport, Iowa today, Rob, just so you remember.
Well, he remembers all the other ones. I mean, you know what I mean? Let's work on these next one. You got to know where you're from, your bio,
Matt Dean, Davenport, Iowa. You know what? And the most famous man ever to come from a town named Ocelot, Iowa. He was quite the bowler. Roy Munson from Kingpin. Ocelot, Iowa. Bo Carter, before we go up to Coach Hartwell, got to ask you this. That Big 12 basketball is really good. I was thinking about this yesterday when I was out running. I just think about things. And why is the middle of America so strong in basketball? And I'm not saying the SEC's not and the Sun Belt's not, but damn, they play a hell of a brand of basketball there. And Kelvin Sampson has them right now as the number 1 seed. But what is it about the Big 12 this year that makes it so strong? And not just this year, but many, many years.
Must be something about the I-35 corridor, as Matt Dean and Mr. Hartwell would know. There's something from like Austin to San Antonio to Dallas, count Fort Worth in there, but so much high school talent, all the way up to Kansas City and into Minneapolis there, man. It goes right up the freeway. But no, there's just such great high school talent, and they're finally the Big 8 schools before the merger of the Big 12 with the Southwest Conference included. It always had great basketball, and now the Big 12 with the recruiting area, and then finally starting to get some of the local talent in here has really made a big difference in the Big 12.
And Bill Self had won. And Matt, Bill Self. He'd won 14 Big 12 championships in a row. John Hartwell, I got to ask you something. It was brought up yesterday by Mitch Davis, our young correspondent. Unbelievable, the MitchDavisShow.com. It's a great podcast. He was at the SEC tournament, every game, every press conference. He soaked it all in. Now he's at Trembling Hills recovering from being up there for a while. But I got to ask you this. I don't like the direction. I do not, and I've always said this because I love, and my dad corrected me last night, it's not Horatio Alger, it's Horatio Alger. I love the story of the underdog that fights. As Shug Jordan famously said when Auburn was on the way to the Iron Bowl as a heavy underdog, he said, I seem to remember David was about a 40-point underdog to Goliath. How'd that work out? So let's talk about that. And are you positioning yourself to be on these committees to where you will speak out? You're a proud native son of Mobile. You went to UMS High School, Citadel graduate. You're a student athlete, but you've got that magical deal. You're a CPA. You've been in the private sector. I would dream to have you as my athletic director at any school because you get it. But talk about where we're going with Greg Sankey and the Big Ten, trying to make some sense out of it.
Hey, if I could do that, I would be worth a whole lot of money, I think, because I don't know that. I mean, everybody can say they've got their angle on it, but there are new twists and turns every day. Obviously, with Clemson, following suit with Florida State here this week, and pardon the pun there, but literally they did follow suit. That would be as in lawsuit with them. But and then I think, as you alluded to on your show yesterday when I was listening, Rob, talking about I think it's J.P. Morgan starting their sports equity side of things. I mean, it scares the hell out of me. I'm not going to hold back my opinion on it. What it does to collegiate athletics as we know it, and we've talked here on your show the last couple of years about, regardless the makeup, things are not going to change people's passion for their institution. But gosh, we sure are tinkering with it a lot. And when you look back and today, I appreciate what you had to say about my surgery. Yeah, post knee replacement 9 days out. I'm not as big and bad and tough as I thought I was. This literally has brought me to my knees, but we're on the road to recovery. But there was some intentional planning in terms of today and tomorrow are the best 2 days ever in basketball. And you think about the storylines, and I know we have a heavy, SEC contingent amongst your following. But let's look at some of the sidelights. As I was making a few notes for today earlier, I said, well, hey, where in the world is Waldo? If I could be one place today, I think I would choose Salt Lake City, the 4 games there, because there are some interesting storylines. Long Beach State, Arizona, the opening game, not so much. But then you look at Nevada and Dayton. What a lot of people don't understand about Nevada, you've got Alford as the head coach, which many people know him from his playing days and then being the head coach at Indiana. But what a lot of people don't know, Craig Neal, who was the longtime head coach at Georgia Tech, is his lead assistant. They're a really good team. And then the next 2 games after that, you talk about some of the, I wouldn't even call them mid-majors, because they have risen up. And when you talk about the story of Will Wade and McNeese State, who goes against Gonzaga, and then Samford and Buckyball with Coach Bucky McMillan against Kansas. I saw a clip this morning that Bucky McMillan did talking about the importance of the rise of their basketball program and what athletics has done for their institution. And as an athletic director, I could not have scripted what he had to say any better about the positive impact of athletic success for their institution. So I'm excited about today.
Yeah, and it is a great day. And I will say this too. When you get to travel a lot, and if you don't ever get out of your region, you don't understand what I'm talking about. But Matt, you know it, John, Brendan, Bo, everywhere you go, it's personal. People are just as proud of a D1, a D2, or a D3. They take pride in that. We better not rob people of that. I want my school and my conference to do well, but man, how many people knew the nickname of St. Peter's until 2 years ago? The Peacocks, until they beat Kentucky. And,
Go Bears.
Yeah, and University of Northern Colorado. What would they be with Dalton Connect still there? But it is, people say it lasts 3 weeks. My wife goes, is basketball over? And I'm like, we're just getting started. I'm like, come on, Mildred, put your house shoes on, get your damn robe on. But this is just unbelievable. Matt, at tournament time, what you've done all season long, wouldn't you say you're pretty much who you are? If you don't shoot free throws well as a team, you don't play defense, it's hard to become something different in a matter of days, correct?
Yeah, you are who you are, right, guys? And to John's point, and John, I hope you're doing well. I got Samford in my Sweet 16. I think they're beating Kansas. And then I actually think they'll beat the winner of Gonzaga and McNeese State. I know this. They're very well coached. They have a unique brand of basketball. I saw a little bit of clip on, I believe it's one of the special assistants, Dwayne Rebo, who's a longtime successful coach at Birmingham Southern. The man can flat out coach, and there's a great story between him and Coach Bucky, right? And I'm really pulling for the Samfords of the world this weekend. It is a basketball holiday today. It really is. You look at the slate of games, it's just so fun. And then the last thing I want to say, Rob, is I was completely wrong last weekend. We did our picks on here, and I got to tell you, Auburn's got a chip on their shoulder. They did last weekend, and I think they're going to have a chip this weekend because the committee did Bruce Pearl a favor by seating him 4. And I'm going to tell you what, I think one of the best games that's going to happen, and I'm not jinxing Auburn, but I think the UConn-Auburn game in the Sweet 16, I think Auburn's going to beat them. I got Auburn as my national champion in my bracket. I really do. And I love what I saw, and I think the seeding helps them a little bit more because they're going to be like, you guys have no idea how good we are. And I just think this time of year, who's playing the best? I hope Tennessee can get their stuff together. That was about as poor as a performance I can remember from a regular season SEC game. And kudos to Mississippi State. They went in there and they played great. And they I think they'll beat Sparty in Michigan State. But you're right, Rob. I mean, you are who you are, and little things matter. And that's why I always felt like the teams that have that post player in tournament play, someone to throw the ball inside to, albeit get at the free throw line or make an easy bucket, have an advantage this time of year too.
One thing for sure that I have noticed, and that is when you start looking at these games, people overanalyze. And in the financial markets, it's called paralysis by analysis. You think too much, and you think yourself out of a good idea. It's like people that try to save money, to save a nickel. My friend Jason Perry says they trip over $1 to save a penny. And that's what you got to be careful of. When you pick these games, Bo Carter, your knowledge, your history, putting things in perspective. Talk about the significance. Baylor, they've done it. Guy V. Lewis at Houston for a long time. They were perennial powers, but sort of a preamble to the tournament is a lot of people will watch Survive and Advance about the 1983 North Carolina State team. Tommy Kane was on the show with us Monday morning, and NC State Wolfpack alum. Right now, Houston, they're a number 1 seed again. Give me a case for Houston going all the way. Well, or why would they do it? I mean, it's like everywhere Kelvin Sampson goes, he wins.
Well, they got spanked pretty good in the Big 12 tournament. Iowa State beat them by 28, but I think that was kind of an anomaly. They've had some injury problems. And by the way, Matt, you mentioned our Dwayne Rebo, worked with him at Mississippi State, one of the nicest, but a legendary coach in New Orleans area down there too. I know he can really recruit. And Mr. Hartwell mentioned this. It's hilarious. Dan Monson got fired about a week ago from Long Beach State, and then he takes them through the Big West tournament and they win it. So at his news conference yesterday, if y'all get a chance, I'll try to pull it up on YouTube and send it to you. He said, I have nothing to fear. He said, I'm working for free right now. He said, win or lose, we're having a great time. He said, this is all bonus basketball or whatever. So Matt and Mr. Hartwell can appreciate that or whatever too. But it's back to your point. Auburn and Houston are mentioned in a lot of the final mini brackets as the 2 finalists. So it could come down to that.
That would be wild. Let me throw a stat here. This is an article from Sportico that my son sent me. JP Morgan, creating sports investment banking group. Did I not predict this on the show a while back? We'd see private equity and venture capital. JP Morgan is creating a sports investment banking group that will collaborate with its investment banking, commercial banking, and private bank divisions to offer clients advisory and investment opportunities. Ready for this stat? With top sports franchises in the US of A and Europe now valued at more than $400 billion in total, sports have become an increasingly large asset class, attracting more and more institutional investors. We saw it coming, folks, on SEC Sidelines Sports and SECU because we get the smartest people, but we've been talking about this. Here's another stat, John Hartwell. Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville, covers Tennessee, was on with us yesterday. Since 1985, so if you don't think it matters if your team goes in there and takes a giant dump in the conference tournament, it does. Since 1985, no team that failed to advance to at least the semifinals of their conference tournament has gone on to win the national championship. Mm-hmm. John Hartwell, you're great at dissecting things and breaking them down. Pretty powerful statement, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really
facts.
Is. And, hey, I'd be remiss, Rob, if I didn't say what an honor it is. And I don't know how we hadn't been on before, but to be on the same show with Bo, because he's
awesome.
Bo is Bo is on the Mount Rushmore of media relations.
Yes, he
guys.
is.
I would put he and his sidekick Langston Rogers, who I had the pleasure to work with almost 2 years at Ole Miss, right up there. So great to be on with you, Bo. Please don't call me Mr. Hartwell. That
Thank you
was
so
my
much.
John is great.
Thank you.
So, but you're exactly right, Rob. And we talked about this a little bit last week. The ability to turn it on, turn it off. And I know some coaches try to take the angle to say, oh, well, gosh, if we don't perform well, if we lay a total egg in the conference tournament, for example, Tennessee last week, we'll get it going next week. It's not that easy to turn on and off. And that is one of the things that is. So, I mean, it applies in every sport as you reach championship season, but maybe more so in March Madness than any other sport. It's all about when you peak. There are many teams out there that peak, whether it's, mid-February, and obviously those teams are not going to be successful, but it's about peaking at the right time. And, it'll be interesting to see here over the next 2.5 weeks who peaks when and who comes out on top when we get to Scottsdale.
Well, in the psychology of it, and anybody that wants to answer this one, do it. But people make a mistake when they say, you don't want to peak too early. Well, you should always be ready to play, but you do have to take steps and ladders, don't you, Coach Matt Dean? I mean, I would love to have been one of your players, because getting to know you as I have and listening to you before I got you to be part of the Sidelines team, you're kind of a cool hand Luke coach, but at the same time, you can sort of go into George Kennedy from Cool Hand Luke and go, that's my boy, Luke. I bet you can get pretty intense if somebody's not giving you 110%. I would not want to be on the other end of an ass chewing from you.
I think I'm going to take that as a compliment, Rob. But
It's a compliment.
How are you supposed to take that one?
Yeah.
I would just say I would not want to be on the.
I would love to get my ass kicked by you, buddy. Like you're the best. If I'm going to take an ass whooping from a coach, Matt Dean, you're my guy. Now get me some hard-boiled eggs. I'm going to break the record.
Gosh, Rob, you kind of led me to that one. But anyway, here's the thing. Honestly, when I was coaching, I used disappointment.
Oh, no.
Times. And I mean by that, if my team played as poorly as Barnes' team did last weekend,
yeah.
I mean, you don't go in there and throw chairs. It's pretty easy. You're like, guys, we're a lot better than this. We're
Well, Matt is frozen in time. John Hartwell, your thought. Matt, are you with us? Matt will be back with us in a second. But John Hartwell, and we all know Matt. We when he comes back, you think about how do you react? Is it as important, Bo Carter, how you react after a loss versus anything else? Because if you go too overboard, Matt, you were frozen there for a minute. Continue, carry on with the lecture. I like this.
No, I'm guessing that underwater cable that was cut last week in Florida is still affecting me in Memphis, Tennessee. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
One time I give Rob some information about like the cable, and now that literally is the problem for everything on the planet Earth.
I know. I just didn't use that, Brendan. So the first one.
It's like Rob, that didn't have anything to do with your toaster not working this morning.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the air fryer, Brendan.
Yes.
Anyway,
Air fryer.
No, I just think, sometimes you can take – I can't argue the stats you gave me about no team making it after not making their semifinals, but I just think it's going to be a big-time motivator, and I expect Tennessee it'd be interesting. Honestly, I think Colorado State is going to beat Texas, but if Texas and Tennessee play in the second round, that would be a great game. I think Colorado State is a lot better than people think.
Let's go Rams.
Yeah. Well, all of y'all, Bo Carter, one thing I always remember was watching David Housel running around on the court because he managed the NCAA, Final Four, running around the court trying to grab Jimmy Valvano as he was celebrating, hugging and kissing everybody on the court in Albuquerque when they won the national championship. You were kind of like that as well. You're right there with all the media people. How big is the crush of media at these games, especially as you keep climbing the ladder toward the Final Four?
Well, the Final Four is amazing. John's been there. Matt's been there. The hardest part about the Final Four, the conference PR people used to have to count the MVP and the all-tournament ballots, like in the last 3 minutes. The game got 260 people voting, and like 4 of us would get together and like crank. Hey, what do you have? Okay, add them up. So it's major thank goodness my math training helped on that. But Robert Starnes thing. One of the weirdest ones, and John and Matt remember that 94 one in Charlotte when Nolan Richardson in Arkansas came up and whipped Duke pretty badly, and it was like somebody just let the air out of the there were like 400 Duke media, Carolina media there in the whole crowd, and Bill Clinton came to the game and went out and shook hands with Nolan Richardson after the game. It was one of these surreal deals or whatever, but I think everybody except maybe Nolan and the Razorbacks thought that Duke was going to take it. So it's that's a wonderful thing about the Final Four. The great NC State last shot, and Villanova dominating for a couple of years, Florida winning 2 years back in the good old days. So it's just such it is basketball holiday, as John said.
Well, a little bit of trivia here, information provided by Doug B. Dean, who was on the show with us yesterday, and since UCLA's streak of 7 consecutive national titles ended in 1974, there have only been 2 repeat national champions, Duke in 91-92, and they played for it in 90 and lost to UNLV 187-74 or something like that. It was awful. And then Florida 06 and 07. A little bit of savant trivia provided by Doug B. Dean. Duke had 4 starters come back. Florida had all 5 come back. And then you look at UConn. Last year, they lost 5 straight games during the season. They were a 4 seed that won the national championship. Last year was the first time ever that no number 1 seed made the Final Four. So Auburn is a 4 seed, but you got to take them one at a time. Coach John Hartwell, I call you a coach because as the father at University of Louisiana Monroe, ULM, of 17 sports teams, I guarantee you were probably, while you were recovering, you're staying, I know you are, I mean, probably to it, that's a stupid word. You're staying on top of it. You're a coach for 17 teams, 387 student athletes, plus parents, and there's a lot that you do. Talk about this time of year. Just making the tournament is a big deal. Now, obviously, you want to advance, but to say you made it is, even if you're the 71st guy that graduates in a class of 75 from medical school, you're still a doctor.
Yeah,
there's no question. To say you made it.
Yeah, and you look at a great example last night. Hats off to Grambling. Grambling was down 15 points in the second half. They looked dead to rights against Montana State and made a fast and furious comeback, made free throws down the stretch, and they advance. Merry Christmas. The good news is you win. The bad news is you got to go play Purdue tomorrow. But hats off to them with their first NCAA, not only appearance, but also gaining a win. And that is one of the beauties of the first 4. There's no asterisk that goes by winning those games. You have won an NCAA tournament game, and, hats off to them. But I think that's the beauty right there of March Madness. And, I'd be interested to hear Bo's perspective on this, because I know not as closely as he once did, but I know the Bulldogs and the Cowbells in Starkville are still very near and dear to his heart. But we're less than 3 hours to tip off of our first game, Michigan State and Mississippi State. I know one of your listeners said, is Sparty any good? I think this is going to be a heck of a game, this first game.
Yeah.
Because you can never count Tom Izzo out. But I would say this, too. The job that Ben Howland has done and what's been done at Mississippi State, they are a physical, tough basketball team. They really, to me, remind me more of a Big Ten team than a typical SEC team. I think it's going to be a heck of a matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Jans at Mississippi State in his second year.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
sorry.
I know.
I had a flashback there. Sorry about that.
It reminds.
Talking about Ben Howland.
I know that. No, I'm messing with you. But that reminds me of one time at a press conference, Pat Dye was being criticized about something, forgetting something, and he said, "Hell, I was on the staff at Alabama. We were playing Tennessee one time, and Coach Bryant's running up and down the sidelines going, 'Where's Leroy? Put Leroy in. Put Leroy in.' He goes, 'Coach, he's been gone 4 years.'" Chesterfields and whiskey and rye, man. Bo Carter. Look, this is, I mean, I feel like a traffic cop in London with having y'all on here. This is surreal. Bo Carter, respond to what John Hartwell said. I love that.
Great point. One thing about this, MSU will win this game, either Michigan State or Mississippi State. You're guaranteed MSU win day, but no, this is going to be a bloodbath out there. I tell you what, a lot of pressure on the officials. Man, there'll be a lot of quite a few hacks, reach ins, and they've been calling it, from what I've seen in the first 4 games too, that calling it pretty loosely. So I don't know which they always do in the NCAA, let them hammer each other out pretty well. So that might be to Mississippi State's advantage. But boy, Michigan State's got some big, tough youngsters playing for them. So it should be I mean, that could be a 2-4 point game either way.
Matt Dean, as a coach, Tom Izzo, they last won the national championship in 2000, but since then they've been to 7 Final Fours, multiple Elite Eights and Sweet 16s. As a fan, and I'm seeing this with Bruce Pearl, when you got a coach like Tom Izzo, it makes the regular season, Matt. I pay attention to every game. Talk about Tom Izzo's style. It works year after year after year. You're not playing just this year's version of Michigan State basketball. You're playing all that tradition, aren't you?
Yeah, Bo and John nailed it because, Izzo's a former football player. And you look at how his teams play, man, they are tough. Now, I will tell you, I watched Jans get in the huddle, Bo. He gets after those guys pretty good.
God. He is rough.
Now, if you Google Chris Johns, not only will you see Mississippi State basketball coach, you'll see a couple other things from his past, but I'm glad he's kind of got things on track, and I know John's kind of out of there. But honestly, I got an interesting stat for you, Bill. You're talking about 94. So in 94, when Arkansas won the national championship, Memphis hosted a regional. We had Arkansas over our gym. And as a young coach, I got a chance to watch 40 Minutes of Hell in person practice. It's the day before their first game. They are going up and down the floor, guys, like it is their last breath. And he's in the middle of the floor barking at him, and that's a kind word. I can't use some of the language.
The decorum prohibits.
But Nolan was getting after him like, hey, this is what we do every day. It doesn't matter we play first-round game tomorrow. So that was 94. They won the national championship. I remember the year, maybe it was when Arizona won it, I think in Indy, guys, maybe it was 97. I could be wrong. They
97.
Okay.
97, yeah.
So I met Lute Olson. And then in 2000, I think it was the last Michigan State title, whatever the year is, they practice in our gym. And I met Tom Izzo. And I got to tell you, watching the Michigan State practice live, it's not much different than the game. They get after it. So, Bo, I think it's going to be one of the most intriguing matchups. I've watched a lot of Big Ten basketball this year. My Iowa Hawkeyes are in the NIT, so I struggle a little bit with some things. But honestly, I think Michigan State is always a tough first-round opponent. I saw a stat where when they were like the underdog in a first-round game, they have a great record. But I like Mississippi State today, Bo. I really do. I think they have more offense than Sparty does, but I think it's going to be like 62-58. That's my opinion. But it's going to be interesting. And then, so we had practices over at Rhodes yesterday. I'm trying to get out of the parking lot, guys. So I wanted to meet the mayor, Fred Hoiberg. They were practicing in our gym. They were 45 minutes late, and I had to go to an off-campus meeting. And then I'm stuck in my parking lot. There must have been 20 motorcycle cops, 3 cars, leading the bus of 15 players in our gym from Nebraska. I guess the city of Memphis is worried, Rob, that something might happen to these young men on that bus. So we have so much security in our parking lot. But we got Clemson over there. New Mexico's practicing. We got Longwood. We had Nebraska yesterday. It's a really fun time of the year when you host a regional. The last time we did that in Memphis, we had North Carolina, Kentucky, UCLA, and Butler. Remember that, Rob? It was phenomenal.
Well, you think about this, and Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, was on the show yesterday, and he worked with Eddie Sutton and also Nolan Richardson when he was at Arkansas. He's still up there covering him 35 plus years. He said Nolan Richardson in practice would physically challenge people to, hey, bring it on, buddy. I love that style of play. I love what he did. Coaches that are outspoken, nothing wrong with that. I mean, he says, I like people that say what they think and say what they believe, and they do what they think's right. John Hartwell, you think about a coach. You pick the school. Tom Izzo. I remember watching him. My son Wilson and Max and I were at a playoff game for the Grizzlies against Golden State. And Wilson goes, hey, there's Tom Izzo. He was right down there, and we were up in a friend's suite, and he was right below us walking down to see Draymond Green, a very mild-mannered player in the NBA. And it was just cool because people don't realize the lifelong relationship that you have with these guys that you coach. And I watched something on ACC Network. I watch a lot of stuff about Carmichael Arena. And they had Phil Ford, James Worthy, Sam Perkins, and different guys interviewed. They teared up talking about what Dean Smith meant to them. And I remember in 1987 being up in Chapel Hill, and we went to the new arena. And, Duke Vitale named it appropriately. And now they're going to call it the Dean Dome, baby. Oh, my. What? I mean, basketball, when you look at these places where it's been good for a long time, it's the tradition, the history, the heroes. It's just as important to those people as football. That's why this March Madness is so much fun. John, you brought in Missy Bilderback. You brought in a new coach. Hiring coaches, what are the top 3 things that you look for before you pull the trigger and say you're hired?
Yeah, I think this goes as it relates to coaches. I think it also goes as it relates to recruiting student athletes. There's no substitute for character. I think you've got to have a high character person first and foremost. Obviously the talent, the attributes of being able to identify talent, to develop talent, all of those things are really important too. So I'd say the first silo is character. The second one are those coaching attributes you would typically think of, player development, recruiting, X's and O's, all of those things. And I think the third thing that often gets overlooked sometimes is fit. And people say fit, that's just a common sense thing. Well, you would think it's a common sense thing, but there are some coaches that may plug and play and be successful in Monroe, Louisiana, or Starkville, Mississippi, or wherever else, that if they were in LA or New York or whatever, they would be absolutely lost. And I think that's really important as we look at those things. But to me, character trumps all, because when things get tough, and it's not if things get tough. I mean, normally when you're hiring a coach, you're either hiring a coach because your program is at the bottom and you need a rebuilder, or you've had a high level of success and somebody has paid more money to hire your person. Regardless, there are going to be changes, but I think it's really important. And, you can have somebody that doesn't have high character over a 2 or 3 year period.
Yeah.
But I think if you want sustained success, character really matters.
Yeah. And and I see comments by people. I mean, look, some coaches out there, my wife's favorite actor is Kurt Russell, and he did play used car salesman. Remember in that movie? He's pretty famous
Best
for that.
movie
But
ever.
yeah, now she would argue the best movie ever is Tombstone because we watch it about every 6 weeks over here. And but I think you got to get somebody. You know what? And also when you recruit the kids, you got to recruit people that are tough enough to take that kind of coaching. Bottom line is, folks, all 95, 98% of these guys and gals, they're not going pro in their sport. And if they do, it might be 3 or 4 years. Whatever they get their degree in, it's going to have to carry them through life and what they learned along the way. Mary Trapnell is going to join us in just a few minutes. She's going to talk a few minutes about one of our sponsors, Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. So Mary will jump in here probably about 45 after Brendan. But Bo Carter, you just heard what John Hartwell said. And I know he went to the Citadel where they have this deal, which is a big deal called the Honor Code. Mm-hmm. And your honor is the most important thing. It's dearer than your life. It's so important. Now we aim for that, but who are some of the best coaches, people-wise, character-wise, integrity-wise, that you've ever known on the hardwood? Because I've got some that I can think of as a kid in Memphis. Gene Bartow, my God, that guy, he was the bomb. But who were some of your favorites?
Well, obviously, a couple of them. John Wooden, right off the top, he actually came to Mississippi State and spoke their basketball banquet because Bob Boyd was the coach then, and they'd butted heads a few times out there in Los Angeles. But Coach
Holy
Wooden,
cow.
the pyramid principle, one of the great things of all time. Everybody used in business and everywhere else. And Richard Williams, the old retired, still doing some radio from Mississippi State. Really a great guy. Always. The players loved him. He worked in the admissions office for like the first 4 years at Mississippi State as a part-time coach, just so he could get into coaching. And same thing, Wow. He was a manager, I think, for the basketball team, and just really had a goal. And took a '96 team to the Final Four. And a couple of people like that just come, obviously to mind. Matt Dean's probably in that thing. When Matt, by the way, in that great category. But Chris Jans is a native of Iowa. I need to find out the town, but he moved. He got out of there pretty fast, but he had the great years at New Mexico State before he went to Mississippi State. But he is a fellow Iowa native, it looks like.
I think I know where he's from. Ocelot, high school classmate of Roy Munson.
He may be Osceola. I'm going to Google him. Hold on.
I think he is.
Hey, let me ask you this. I like this comment by Dr. David Arnoff over in the panhandle of L.A., Lower Alabama. John Hartwell knows what I'm talking about. He wishes right now, you know what John Hartwell wishes right now? He was back home in Mobile at Wenzel's or Constantine's for the great gumbo. You know you're in the South or you're with a real chef that knows what gumbo is when it's got the bay leaf in it and the crab claws. As Will Johnson always says, Brown, I rarely eat seafood unless I'm in Mobile because if it's been frozen, it's not really seafood. But I digress. John Hartwell, you talk about, or Matt Dean, I want to throw this at you. He talked about these coaches. I remember Billy Donovan playing for Providence, 86, 87 with Rick Pitino. And I know Rick Pitino's done some stupid things, but I love that guy's confidence. I got a book he wrote years ago. I've still got it. Success is a Choice. Matt Dean, talk about some of your favorite coaches that you've learned from along the way. And you've met a lot of them and you know them. D1, D2, D3. It's a tight-knit fraternity. And you know what I've always thought was pretty cool? How much respect a guy that's at a D1 program has for somebody at a D2 or D3. You know why? Because they've been there. You asked Coach John Brady on this show, he said, Rob, my first 3 years as a coach, because they talk about all the money coaches make, he goes, I made $15,000 a year. They worked their way up.
Well. My mentor, my guy was Coach Herb Hilgeman, who we've named the floor
Yep.
after at Rhodes
Yep.
College. Coach, little story on Coach, and God rest his soul. He won nearly 500 games here. He's in our Hall of Fame. His name is on our court, but he led the state of Kentucky in rebounding as a player his senior year. He was recruited by Joe B. Hall, Adolph Rupp's assistant at the time, but chose Tate's Lock at Miami of Ohio because of the loyalty factor. Tate's was on him for like 3 years, and Kentucky came in late. And then that translated to like when I worked with Coach, and some of the recruiting philosophies was it's all about loyalty. And at Division III, we're not offering you a scholarship. All we can offer you is love and interest and a great education. And Coach would do a lot of handwritten notes to players. If it was a local kid, we would watch that kid 10 to 12 times a year. If it's someone we really wanted, obviously, I wouldn't watch every kid 10, 12 times a year. But, he just did things the right thing. And one of the sayings that he used to say to the team, after a game, if we won, it was all the players. And if we lost, he took the responsibility. And I just think accountability matters. And I think John was right about fit. I mean, there are a lot of great coaches, but they're not fit for everywhere, and that's just, it's always been the thing. And, I got to tell you, early in my career, I had a chance when Bill Self was Leonard Hamilton's assistant at Oklahoma State. They were playing Iowa State, which was 35 miles away from – I was at Drake at the time as a manager for the basketball team, and one of my assistant coaches, Tom Butler, was good friends with Coach Self when they were at Kansas together with Larry Brown and Danny and the Miracles. Got a chance to sit down and have a couple cocktails with Bill Self. Then when he got the Oral Roberts job, he came to Memphis for a recruiting event. He remembered me, wrote me a letter afterwards. I just thought every time I started the year, I went to YouTube, I would Google Bill Self and watch 7 minutes of how to defend a ball screen. Bill Self.
Yeah.
Greatest teacher for that I know of.
Well, here's another fun trivia question. I guarantee you, Bo Carter, all of y'all know it. If you ever ran into Lefty Drizel, and I think he just passed away recently.
Yes.
Everyone I ever knew that met him would say, yeah, Coach, do me one favor. Give me a foot stomp. Remember he would stomp his feet? That's what he would do. Think about where we are right now in college basketball. A friend of mine who played college football at Arkansas said, I'm so mad after watching. They talked to a player in that Montana State Grambling game. I think they asked him what his legacy would be. He'd already announced he was entering the portal before the game. And he said, just his statement and stuff, he goes, I can't watch it now. We've got to be careful because as a kid, all of us, we grew up, we knew the roster end to end. Those guys that came to your school, you loved them because they loved what you loved. Bo Carter, write us a quick headliner, a bump, a tease, whatever, about pulling someone like my friend Tommy back in, who's like an older brother to me. I love this guy. I've known him since high school. But I don't want to lose fans because of something like that.
Yeah, ignore the portal and the NIL, and you'll be much happier. Yeah.
There you go.
What do you do? One of LSU's, I think, women's like seventh players or whatever just announced like the day after they played the SEC championship, she was transferring. It's just, man, you and TCU had this problem this year where they got down to 6 players. The new coach came in and, sort of helped some other previous players move on or whatever. And they had 3 people hurt, and they had to go get. They had to have tryouts from the student body. Matt probably remembers this. So you have to really, just be careful of what you ask for in this situation.
Yeah, somebody told me that Florida Atlantic is that where they filmed Waterboy, the Waterboy with Adam Sandler?
Maybe, I'm not sure. It's in both of them. Yeah,
it is. It's where they filmed part of it. But anyway, John Hartwell, now as we get into this, people are asking, here's a good question from, it's Mr. Dog, I think. Do you trust Marquette? And I look at these basketball teams in the Big East. And Mary Trapnell will be on with us, and she's going to stay on just a couple of minutes, so y'all stay on with us. But the basketball IQs of those guys that grow up and playing that tough-ass street ball in the Bronx, in Queens, that's why Dean Smith would go up there and get guys like Kenny Smith and bring them down to the South. It's a different brand of basketball, isn't it, John?
It is a different brand of basketball, and something I think I've mentioned on here before, and this goes back to Bo's comments about ignoring the portal and NIL, which would be lovely if we were able to do that, but you can't. Don't forget this. The schools like Creighton, DePaul, Marquette, schools like that have big-time Division I basketball, but do not have football. They have an advantage in the NIL game because they don't have to go find money for 85 scholarship guys or 120 roster guys in football. Their primary focus can be 13 to 15 basketball players. And
correct.
Take a mathematician to realize that, hey, $1 million, $2 million goes significantly further in NIL and taking care of multiple student athletes in basketball than it does in football. And I think that's one of the real advantages that you're going to continue to see.
Well, you're right about that. Also, I have multiple brackets, and I pick one of them, and I've got to finish the other one the minute we go off the air today, and that's the Catholic schools. Now, some are run by the Jesuits, but they're still Catholic universities. You just mentioned Marquette. You mentioned Creighton and another school. They're all Catholic universities. St. John's, the Red Men. They play great brand of basketball. And, you know, Villanova, y'all know Jay Wright.
Hey, Rob, you got to be politically correct. I think they're the Red Storm now. You can't
Red
call
Storm.
them Red Men.
Oh, okay, Red Storm. I call my son Wilson. Wilson, my son, has red hair. I call him the Red Man. But anyways, my son, so challenge me on that one, anybody. Bring it on. But anyway, you're right. So let me throw this one at you. When you look at college basketball, these teams that have been together 3 or 4 years, John, you hit it. You nailed it. When you don't have to spread it out, and some of these SEC schools have 500 and 600 student athletes spread out over 21 or 24 sports, and you've got 15. Matt Dean, how'd you like to be coaching at Creighton, home of the Blue Jays, or Marquette? You know? And by the way, Tommy Boy was filmed on the campus of Marquette. I just wanted to throw that in. He was a hell of an athlete, Chris Farley, by the way.
So getting back to Marquette quickly, I think it all depends if Tyler Kolek plays because he's been banged up. And they're a much different team when Tyler Kolek's in the lineup. I just wanted to answer that one question by Mr. Big Dog, or is that MN Big Dog, Minnesota Big Dog or Big Dog? Now, honestly, that's another great point John brought up about those schools. You know, when you don't have to fund football at that level, when we're talking NIL. Another thing I don't understand, John and Bo, is we go Selection Sunday. The next day, John, the portal opens up again for basketball. I mean, can we not wait until we got teams turning down NIT bids because they're too busy recruiting because they weren't good enough to get in the tournament? Now, I will tell you, I feel for Indiana State, St. John's after watching Virginia play. That was terrible. You know, but honestly, the NCAA does us no favors. They do us no favors by opening up the portal right after the Selection Sunday show. Do you agree, John?
Yeah.
I just thought that was very ironic.
Yeah. It makes no sense. And again, you saw it transpire over the 36 hours post Selection Sunday. You had teams opting out of the NIT, and I know if you've been a perennial NCAA tournament team, those folks have the feeling that NIT stands for not in tournament. I understand that, but you can't just have everything. Again, the tail is wagging the dog, and part of that is by the policy that's been created. And having the portal open the day after Selection Sunday does not make any sense.
I just wanted to throw this in at you. You're talking about Grambling and Eddie Robinson III. We've had him on the show before. I met him almost 2 years ago in Birmingham at the Saban Legacy Dinner. They were honoring his grandfather, Eddie Robinson, along with Steve Spurrier for the Nick Saban Legacy Award. Eddie Robinson III just texted me. He lives in Atlanta. And he said, yeah, that was a great win last night for Grambling pride. See, that's pretty cool. Because as a kid, I would watch the Eddie Robinson, the Grambling football show every Sunday morning in Memphis at 10 o'clock. And I'd still remember things that his grandfather said. So just getting in the tournament, I don't know how far Grambling's going to go. They may get plowed over the first day, but I'll tell you one thing. There are going to be a lot of people pulling for him because Horatio Alger is loved in America. We do love underdogs. I mean, America is a mixture of people from everywhere in the world. We won the lottery, okay? And Europe's never been the same for the last 400 years because all the hungry, ambitious people are on this show today. They used to live in Europe, but I digress. Guys, we talk about it. Does the NIT make money for the schools or is it a financial loser? I don't know. Well, let's talk about Xavier. That's another team. Hand me my brackets if you would, Mildred. I'm going to give y'all, I do one, Paul, all three of them, Paul, make me holler. Hand me all three. There's one. Yes, sir. Okay, so what I do, I've got one bracket that I do, guys. It's called all brown dogs, past and present, that we've ever owned in our family. So we go with the animal nicknames. Sometimes there's a matchup, and neither team in the matchup has an animal nickname, so I just pick somebody. But my final four for the all dogs, past and present, are UConn, the Huskies, North Carolina Tar Heels. That's a ram. It's a big ram. It's a big goat, really, a giant goat with huge horns. The Florida Gators and the Texas Longhorns. All right. So my national championship on my dogs poll is the UConn Huskies and the Florida Gators. As I said yesterday, a gator always beats the dog. I mean, come on, don't leave your dog too close to the water on a leash because you're going to come back with an empty leash and no dog. I actually saw that happen at Okefenokee Swamp one time as a young lad, and it still, I still remember it. But my final four, okay, SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU is Auburn, College of Charleston, Marquette, and Tennessee. And I have Auburn beating Marquette for the national championship. Okay, I've got orange and blue blinders on. I can't help it. And then the other final four of just RB, Rob Brown, is Auburn, College of Charleston, Florida, Creighton, and Auburn beating Creighton for the national championship. Okay, again, I'm looking at it. Orange and blue can mean Auburn, it could be Florida, it can mean a lot of things. But damn it, how emotional, Bo Carter, right now. All these, think about, you pick the team anywhere in the country. Everybody in the country. It's one of the most least productive days of the year for the American workforce. But you can multitask. You can watch simultaneously at the same time, JW, a lot of games today. I mean, and too much is never enough. That's how I see it, Bo Carter.
And my wife and I were two of the six people that watched the big Vanderbilt play-in game over Columbia, the Battle of the Brains, Vandy and Columbia, with the 4-point win with the Tennessee transfer hitting the two decisive free throws. So,
yeah.
I mean, you unfortunately, and hey, I'll probably watch the WBIT and every other day. John will love this. There are 240 teams, 136 in the NCAA men and women, and then 104 in all the other corollary tournaments. So 240 out of the 722 teams playing D1 basketball are in the postseason. So that's and the coaches are getting bonuses off of it, John. So, best part about it, I guess.
Well, there are 363 teams that can qualify for March Madness. I read a great story. Philip Marshall, great writer for Auburn Undercover, legendary sports writer, one of the best. He said, I don't have a problem with going to 96 teams. Give the top 32 a bye, let the other 64 play, and then you've got 64. Matt Dean, what do you think?
I think I would be all for that. I mean, I don't have as big a problem with that as a lot of people do. I really don't. I mean, at the end of the day, we love basketball. It's madness. It probably makes a little bit more money for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If that keeps some people out of the portal for an extra week, I'm all for it too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, and honestly, everyone gets, I just can't believe we want to expand. Well, everybody expands. I mean, do we ever think, there was a time when we did the national champion football on AP voting, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So now we have a 12-team playoff. I've already heard we're talking about expansion from 12 to 14, I've heard, or 16, right? Whatever. So that's what we do because there's more pie. There's more pie. There's more slices of the pie. And so quickly, my Final Four. I got Auburn, North Carolina, Houston, and Tennessee.
Holy shnikes. Hell, I like this. Dr. David Arnoff. Dr. David Arnoff. I have multiple, he's a doctor. I have multiple vasectomies set up at this time. I run a March Madness special. Strict instructions to lay around and watch TV. Go, urology. I love
Rob,
this guy. I gotta meet Dr. David Arnoff. He's a badass.
Hey, can I ask Dr. Arnoff to answer this for me? As part of his special, does he throw in a free pack of frozen peas as part of
Yeah, sure.
Almost a 2-for-1.
Yeah, the 2-for-1. And look, what the bottom line is, this tournament, it airs Benton's Smoky Mountain hams and cured bacon. Folks, check this stuff out over in Madisonville, Tennessee. It's as good as it gets. You got to love it. I just had some of it last month over in Atlanta at Mallory and Tyler's and Chandler's. It's the best bacon I've ever put in my mouth. It will change your life. And speaking of expansion, we're trying to expand the brand. I love what they are doing. And there's a T-shirt right there that Dr. David Arnoff has, but a bag of frozen peas. That is a good point. Hopefully we're going to be able to get Mary Trapnell on here in a minute. But guys, the thing about this tournament, we all can remember as it has expanded. 1979, Indiana State, Michigan State. That game, Dick Enberg, Kenny Loggins, this is it, make no, and they still use the same song year after year after year. Before that, it was just 16 teams. But you know what, Dr. David Arnoff, you know what, I love this guy. He says he has the show on while he's making rounds in the hospital. Love this guy. And Brendan knows him, Buddy knows him. And I really appreciate him and everybody that watches this show. Remember to smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner and all of our sponsors. I want to say something, too, about Clay's Smoked Tuna in Memphis. Check them out, claysmokedtuna.com. They do smoked chicken salad, smoked buffalo chicken dip, smoked salmon, and smoked tuna. And they are, a lot of times, they're at Campbell Clinic out in East Memphis, but they go all around. And he delivers, they cater, they do parties, whatever. I'd never had smoked tuna before. This stuff, I go buy 4 or 5 containers at a time. Take it to my parents, take it to friends. It's Clay's Smoked Tuna. Glad to have them on board. Love what they're doing. And also, this shirt that I'm wearing, it looks a little confusing. Acres Down South. They make these shirts. They've also got them. They've got one for Tennessee fans with Smokey the Hound on there. They got the one wearing the Tennessee overalls. They got one for Auburn fans called The Corner, and it's the Toomer's Corner Oaks with toilet paper on them. They're getting into the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC. They're going to do more and more schools, and they're great shirts. They're made out of a material in the South that you won't sweat and look like, junior samples on Hee Haw. But Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Also want to say something about the Vitamin Shop. Oxford and Olive Branch, Mississippi open Monday. They're open every day of the week, Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. They have the supplements at the Vitamin Shop, probiotics, pre-workout, active workout, post-workout. Great to have them as a sponsor. And you saw Chad House Industries there at the beginning. All the farming right now, they're tearing up these fields right now. They're getting in there planting. They make the better roller, the pulverizer, the better chopper. And if you like a good catfish sandwich, like they serve at the City Grocery on the square in Oxford, Mississippi, they make the aerators for the catfish farms. Check out all of our sponsors on our website, and Brendan will put the website information up there. But this discussion today, we hadn't even mentioned college football, and we're not. Not that we're boycotting it. That's how big, when March Madness can suck the oxygen out of the room with 4 guys in the Deep South, that's a powerful statement. Anybody, anyone, Bueller, anyone, respond and tell me if you agree or disagree with what I just said. I'll start with Socrates, Bo Carter.
I'll make this
Great
brief.
writer.
I know we're over. We're in bonus time now. We're over.
No, we're fine. We're going a little bit extra.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Sideline.
No.
This is SEC Sidelines Plus.
Bonus, yes. Only found on streaming channels.
It's the March Madness special.
No, but it's the most wonderful time of the year for basketball junkies, and so it's really get ready for busted brackets right off the bat. Grambling did it last night, I guess. So I think I've read Matt and John Kramer from. There's never been a perfect bracket since '85. I guess I read somewhere. Maybe there has been. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's let me interject just quickly a couple of things, Rob. I'll give you my Final Four, a little different than what others have done here. Yeah. I'll go Iowa State, Arizona, Houston, and the Tennessee Volunteers.
Mm-hmm. Rocky Top. Here you go. Arizona, Iowa State, Houston, and the Tennessee Volunteers. What color is the national champion? Orange and white. Oh, wow. That would be big. All right. Who's going to win it all, John Hartwell?
I'm going to say the Houston is. I know they've had some injuries. They're a really talented basketball team, super physical. Kelvin Sampson, he has found the eternal fountain of youth. He's got a lot of juice to him. His team has a lot of juice to them, and I think they've got as good a shot as anybody to win it.
All right. Houston Cougars win the national championship. Out of respect and a tribute to Coach Guy V. Lewis, do you think Kelvin Sampson will take a red and white checkered Italian tablecloth towel and chew on it? Matt Dean. This is like the McLaughlin group. Matt Dean, what do you think?
I loved watching Guy Lewis coach when I was younger.
I did too.
I'll never forget in '83 when that team was one of the greatest teams never to win it. The incredible run by Jim Valvano, and I actually worked for his assistant Tom Abadamarco as a manager at Drake a few years later when I was in college. But I told you my Final Four was Auburn, UNC, Houston, Tennessee. I actually have Auburn and Houston in the final, and I have Auburn penning down the nets.
Wow! If that happens, each of you will receive, from me, you will receive a steamer pack of crystals and a 30 rack of Ham's beer. Yeah. Now, look, that's a big deal, okay? And I might even have to get John, if that happens, or Matt, if that happens, I'm going to get you an Acres Down South shirt. They've got one of them that's got it looks like a Jack Daniels bottle.
You got like a cheetah pattern, something like that, like a little cheetah pattern.
Hey, well, this does look like the Cheetah 3, but Cheetah 3 in Atlanta, that's a gentleman's club up there on Piedmont. Woo! Man, Phil Thompson, Todd Ferretti can tell some stories.
Did they give you the matching Speedo to go with that as well?
No. This is a badass shirt. It's this material that's moisture wicking. That's what's so cool about it. Let me say this. What's the over and under on the number of pizzas that will be ordered in the next 4 days? I'm saying 15 million. Is that a low number or high number? Bo Carter.
I think that's right about right. Maybe 20 million. I'd love to. I guess we need to go buy some Domino stock. I'll talk to John about this after the show or whatever. Too. But it's boy, I tell you, the delivery guys will be on the run for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and we're going to reschedule Mary Trapnell. She ended up having a technical issue. She's going to be back on hopefully tomorrow. We are very, very honored to have what she does, and she and all of our sponsors but she'll be back on tomorrow. But I like this from Shoney. Make them eat the crystals sober, John Hartwell. Hey, my mom told me one time a couple of years ago, she goes, I got to be honest. I got to admit to you, I was driving down Poplar and my car started veering to the right. I'm like, what, the tire blow or something? She goes, no, there was a crystal in the middle of the day. She had to go in there and get them. John, how many times have you eaten crystals for lunch without having a cocktail? I mean, I'll admit I do it. I can't. Look, a box of grenades with shrapnel, that's crystals with onions. A box of fuses, that's French fries. And a bowl of mud, that's the chili. You can't beat that.
See, I'll forgo the chili to have the bacon on the crystals. The bacon cheese crystals are good. And that used to be a regular for lunch. And I'll say this, this was how hard up we were for entertainment. I think it was a fundraising deal for United Way or something. When I was in high school, we had 4 seniors, and I was one of those 4 who went against 4 coaches / faculty members in a crystal eat-off. and it's which team eat 50 crystals first. I think I got to like number 12 or 13. Yes, some of those crystals did reappear post.
Oh my God!
But I still love them to this day, man. I
do too.
And if somebody asks me crystal or White Castle, I'm crystal all day long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad tells me a story about a guy in high school that he played with. I think it was the CBHS Central or CBHS Tech basketball game. He ate 34 crystals before the game and went out and scored 36 points in a basketball game. Put a statue up to that man, Matt Dean. I mean, would you ever recommend someone eat 34 crystals before the game? But if you could guarantee they'd score 36 points and you'd get the win, would you do it? You're on the clock.
I'm guessing at halftime he had a chance to use the facilities, right?
He was dilated about 9 centimeters. The contractions 30 seconds apart.
That's only something a young, healthy man can do. Because first of all, I wouldn't be able to leave the restaurant healthy after that.
They'd have to wheel you out. We used to have these. Yeah.
I'll take an 8-pack of crystals, no onions, and a chocolate milkshake. That's all I need after an intermittent fast. And like I said, probably a restroom close by.
Yeah, and over when we're in Memphis, we've got crystals aplenty. Yeah. When you cross the river, we used to have one in Forest City. It was called the Last Chance because the Duck Club was in Brinkley and Wheatley, Arkansas, the Metroplex. It's been replaced by a Popeyes. But my kids growing up, going over to duck hunt, would always go, Dad, you've got to stop. It's tradition. I'm like, yeah, heartburn's tradition,
But Rob, I grew up in the Midwest and we had White Castles. So
they're not bad. They're not bad.
Hey, listen, White Castles is right there with them. I'm telling you.
They are.
They're right there.
Yeah. Okay. And in Clarksville, Tennessee, where the mother-in-law lives, and Kurt, Audrey's brother, and Max, they have White Castle up there and Crystal. They're really, really good. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up here in the last few minutes. And let me say something else. Rumble Boxing Gym, 1835 Union Avenue, Midtown Memphis. They're open Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Weekends, Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to about noon. 48 people in the classes. You have 15 3-minute rounds, dumbbells, planks, dips, jumping jacks, push-ups, curls. Then you hit those 250-pound bags. Hook, gut, jab. And it is intense. You've got great instructors. RumbleBoxingGym.com. Midtown Memphis, the first of 3 locations. My friend Ann Camp-Lee is planning to build in the Memphis market. Rumble Boxing Gym, get the workout of your life. And also, if your car, your truck, SUV gets busted up in a wreck, or your window gets broken out, and in Memphis, that's almost a given. Tom Martin's, high probability, Tom Martin's Body Shop, G.E. Patterson and B.B. King, downtown Memphis. Tom is as fine a man as you will ever meet. anywhere. Over 40 years he's been working down there. He's got a crew of about a dozen of the hardest, best working people you'll ever meet. And his office will make the paperwork nightmare on insurance a lot easier. Okay, final couple of minutes before we go. Why is it, and I'm going to start with Bo and then Matt and then to John, why is it that we love this tournament, even if we don't follow every basketball game, and I watch a ton of it, but why do we love it so much? Bo Carter, put it in words that only a man who will be on the Mount Rushmore of great writers and media people can put it.
Well, thanks, Rob. No, it's postseason play. It's for all the marbles being wanted. The great thing about basketball, and I love it so much, baseball's got double elimination for the NCAA and football's bowls, et cetera. But basketball, you're one and done, and man, it's March Madness and March Sadness at the same time. Half the teams.
March Madness, I love it. Matt Dean, Davenport, Iowa.
We all grew up as younger kids with nostalgic moments and memories from this tournament. I mentioned 1983 in North Carolina State. I remember watching Al McGuire crying on the sidelines as they beat, Marquette beat UNC and Dean Smith's teams back, I think, in the late 70s when Rick McGuire.
Yeah, 77.
Right? I remember the stoic reaction after Jay Wright's team beat UNC at the buzzer with that kind of kickback little toss for the three at the buzzer. I mean, there's so many great memories, and we all wait for one shining moment at the end, right? It's a great 2.5 minutes. Just have such great memories. I remember in 1980, I was 13 years old, and Iowa went to the Final Four. Ronnie Lester was the point guard playing Louisville. Dr. Duncanstein, Daryl Griffin's team.
Yes.
And Ronnie goes down. He hurts his knee with 10 minutes to go in the first half, and we don't recover. I still believe Iowa won the national championship that year if Ronnie doesn't get hurt, but it's just great memories.
Yeah. Well, and it is. And I think about that. 1980 was Louisville, Daryl Griffith, Dr. Duncanstein against UCLA, and they had Kiki Vandeweghe playing on that team. I mean, you just can't. And then Denny Crum, he's on the Mount Rushmore of comb-overs. He's got to be with that comb-over. Right up there with Bill Murray, the Big E, Ernie McCracken at the end of Kingpin. Check that one out, man. That one is a tidal wave of a comb-over. All right. John Hartwell, your thoughts. And by the way, your prayers, we're praying for your recovery. Yeah. I do it every day. I always pray for people that are hurting and suffering in any way, and for the people around them, the doctors, the nurses, their family, because you're going to get better because you've been doing your rehab. It sounds like all day, every day. Again, tap into that memory bank of the Citadel. The first 3 or 4 days you were there, how many times did you want to go home? But you'd signed the contract and you couldn't. John Hartwell, you're on the clock from Wenzel's Oyster House in Mobile, Alabama. Honk the horn in that tunnel.
Hey, this has probably been the most therapeutic hour and 20 minutes I can have. As always, I appreciate
from the nervous hospital.
Here's what makes the NCAA tournament so great. Who will be this year's St. Peter's, San Diego State, FAU? Somebody is going to emerge that not a whole lot of people are talking about, and that is the beauty of it. That is the beauty that captures so many people's attention, because everybody in the tournament has an opportunity, and who is going to grab the opportunity and make it into much more than that opportunity. So that's really exciting about it. Great to be on with you guys. Hey, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. Our speaking of postseason tournaments, our women's basketball teams in the WNIT.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
The winner of tonight's game between Oral Roberts and Grambling. We looks like we will, excuse me, likelihood host here in Monroe Monday night, the winner of that game. So
great.
Looking forward to that.
Well, and like you said, Eddie Robinson just texted me again. Eddie Robinson III. I'm honored that he watches this show. That's cool. And I think it matters. It doesn't matter D1, D2, D3. It all matters because you're talking about people that are learning the lessons of life. And that's what we love so much about sports. Yeah, this has been an awesome show. Executive producer Brendan Martin, thank you so much. Bo Carter, Matt Dean, John Hartwell, awesome. And everybody, hit that subscribe button, bottom right-hand corner on YouTube. Tell your friends, family, neighbors. doctors, nurses, rehab people, as my dad used to call it. I'm trying to think of the name that he called rehab. He had a name for it when he was rehabbing after a hip surgery, both knee replacements. And he didn't call them physical therapists. He called them physical terrorists. They were tough, but they get you through it, and you will get through it. You're tough as nails. You got a long way to go. Don't even think about retirement until your late 80s, early 90s, and then give a 10-year plan after that. Hey, folks, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We're the most blessed people. Go out and help other people. You never know what kind words and deeds do to help people, but words make a difference, and actions are even more important. See you tomorrow, folks. We're out of here.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.